Hello everybody, my name is Dennis Rael. I'm one of the founders of Los Bagels, and this evening we're going to show you how to make Pan de Muerto or dead bread, which we've been making for almost 40 years here at Los Bagels. Here's our mixer we have. Obviously at home you're going to have your own smaller mixer. You can mix this by home if necessary, but a mechanized mixer is a little bit easier to work with. Normally this process goes on, we mix the dough for about 15 minutes, and I will go ahead, and part of the recipe is to put the yeast in warm water and let it sit. Tonight we're going to accelerate that so you get a chance to see what we're doing. So we're going to start here with a little bit of yeast. All these proportions are in your recipe. And then we add the water. Obviously we have a dough hook here which we're able to use to start to mix this. So we'll just go ahead and mix up the yeast and water a little bit and then let it sit, like I said, for 5 minutes. Next I'm going to go ahead and add in the milk, the sugar, and this size recipe calls for 3 eggs. We'll go ahead and add in the eggs. Then next we have the butter or margarine. And lastly we have the flour and the cinnamon. The cinnamon really obviously adds to the flavor of that, along with a little bit of the coloration of the dough. Oh, and don't forget the vanilla. So this mixes up for about 10 minutes, and you will really see the dough start to develop. It starts off very sticky and doesn't look like it's going to be anything, but the more it mixes up, it will come together as a dough and get less sticky so you can actually work with it. If need be, if you don't have a mixer, you can go ahead and knead this at home, just like if you're making bread. All right, it looks like the dough's about ready. All right, so now we'll go ahead and start forming the dough. So I'm going to have to take off, so it's all you, okay? Okay, so we've got some of the dough made here. You can see that the large piece of dough we have here. And what we go ahead and do, and we shoot for about 1/4 pound, 0.25, to make a pan de muerto for the different sizes that we have and or the different shapes. Traditionally, there are 3 different shapes that we make. There are what's called bones, and then there's men and women. That said, you can make any design you want with this dough for your own pan de muerto at home. So once you get the dough, you go ahead and I'm just going to guesstimate what that weight is. You get it off the large piece and you roll it around with your hand on the surface, and you're going to create a very smooth ball to be able to work with. Okay? So then once we have the balls, and before I go any further, I forgot to introduce, I apologize, is Maggie. She's been doing Pan de Muerto for about 15 years here, and is my helper this evening, which is great, so I sure appreciate it. So we're going to start with what's called the women and how to go ahead and form those. And here's a piece of this dough that ideally, if you have time, you can let it sit for about 10 or 15 minutes for it to rest and relax. And if not, if you're in a hurry, you can go ahead and take it right after it's out of the mixer. So here's the ball once again. And what we do is roll it out. Maggie, you can go ahead and do yours. Everybody has a little bit different style. And then you're creating a head. So you're putting more pressure on this body. It's kind of like a neck like that, and you can even go ahead and go in there with that. Then you take your palm and you press this side here, okay? Then what we're going to do is make the arms. And it's always critical that you fold the arms over, because if not, you'll see those little tips will burn real easily. Go ahead and flip it out like that. And then you can leave it just as that, and we'll go ahead and decorate it in a bit. And or you can go ahead, I'm going to steal Maggie's razor blade here. You can cross score them, which will make a really nice design once it bakes in the oven. Then you go ahead and just take these, and you're going to put it on parchment. Now this one, as you can see, I have a little bigger head than normal, but we'll just call that a cabezón, which means big head in Spanish. So next we're going to go ahead and do one of the men, and we'll do a similar. You start off the same way. Now I have to make this one a little bit smaller head than the other, so we don't have two cabezons. Or maybe they'd feel better if they had a friend as a cabezón. And as you can see here, we have that shape. So with the men, you split it off so you have like two pant legs. And you can also either leave it as is, or you can still go ahead and create off arms and cross that over. So lastly, the shape we have, which is a traditional shape, is called huesos, or bones. And this is to depict, obviously, bones of a skeleton, part of Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead. So you start with, you need just that one, like we have all the other ones here. But instead of splitting it off, you're going to flatten it out with the palm of your hand so it's going to become larger. Then you take some extra dough you have, and you're going to make a snake-like depiction of dough, but pushing your fingers down in here so it splits it off. Now this is too much dough for that piece, so I'm going to do you can pinch a little bit here. This dough is so forgiving. It's such a great dough to use. Then we're going to cross the bones on the other side too, so they'll kind of crisscross. And what you'll see at the end when we go ahead and show you some of the final ones is the whole thing will mound up and the bones will come over the top. So let's go ahead and decorate these, and we'll show you how you can go ahead and decorate them, okay? And Maggie and I will just share this tray here in decorating. So to decorate, we make our own colored sugar just by adding food coloring to sugar and then letting it dry. Then we also use these little jimmies, which are great. And lastly, in the bones, we use what's called caritas, which are little faces, which are made out of just flour and water and then hand painted. So what you do is first you go ahead and coat the whole thing with an egg wash, which is just an egg, and it's in your recipe, an egg and a little bit of water. And then you go ahead and decorate them with the different colored sugars. And these are 3 colors that we picked, but you can use any different colored sugar you want. Sometimes people even at home will use raisins for eyes. You can use other decorations and do that. There is not something that it has to be one way or the other here. So why don't I start egg washing, and Maggie, you can start decorating that half, and then I'll go to this half. Now make sure that you get all the egg wash on everything, because the sugar will not stick if there's no egg there. And I like how these different shapes of people are, but it's just like in real life, you have people who are different shapes and sizes, heights and weights, etc. Okie doke. All right, go to town. I get to do the huesos. And don't be shy with the sugar, because if you get too skimpy on the sugar, the color really won't stand out. In doing this, I kind of think lots of times, like if you've ever seen some traditional sand painting, it's done real similar that way here, picked up with the different colors. But once again, there's no right or wrong on how to go ahead and decorate these. Steal the blue. It's nice because your hands get all colored with the coloring. But obviously you want to use food safe coloring here in doing these. So. All right, here we are, and these are ready to roll. So we're going to go ahead and bake these for about 15 minutes, but keep an eye on them. And one thing that I suggest is these caritas, like I say, go in the bones or the huesos, and you can put them in before you bake them, or I found it's actually best to put them in right after they're out of the oven, because otherwise they'll get a little bit browned in the oven. You bake them at a high temperature. But in doing that, make sure you do it as soon as it's out of the oven, otherwise they won't stick in there. They'll stick, but they'll come right out. So luckily we got this big oven we get to use here. And here we have it. Let me put them over here for them to cool. We have an extra large one in here too, coming out, which you'll get to see what those looks like. And this is actually a 2-pound loaf. Now you can eat these straight by themselves, or go ahead and what's best is to dip them in Mexican hot chocolate or chocolate, and then they're through the roof. But it's hard to pass on warm pan de muerto.